Today is Thursday, and on Thursdays we have writing day. So in your packets, you can go all the way towards the end and you have your writing. And we are going to be talking about story sentences. So in your example in your packet, it talks about geese, and it gives an example with geese. So what I want to do first is I want you to think of an animal or animals that you're going to write about. And it would be really neat if they were in your house. So for example, you could go out in your backyard and maybe look for some ants that you could watch. Or if you have dogs, a cat, a bird, fish. I am going to be writing my story on my goldfish. So I have a picture of my goldfish and I've titled my story, My Goldfish. So I'm going to give you just a minute to decide, brainstorm, talk to your parent and decide what are you going to use as your animal. Go. All right, so you can see the picture of what your page looks like in your packet, and hopefully you have that page in front of you. It talks about parts of story sentences, and it has 3 bullet items. It says that the characters are make-believe. That one we're going to do a little bit different because my fish are not make-believe, so I'm not going to make up an animal. We are going to use real animals. The details tell the events in order. You can already see that I have my transition words here, and we're going to come up with some other transition words that you might want to use because you don't have to use the ones that I used, and you also don't have to use the ones that are in your packet. And then the 3rd bullet item talks about vivid verbs, and vivid verbs tells what the characters do. And remember, verbs are action most of the time. So for example, running, hiking, walking, talking. And also I added this is not on your page here, but we're going to talk about adjectives, and just make sure that when we are talking about our animals, adjectives mean that we describe them. So we're using words, instead of just saying my goldfish, I could say my colorful goldfish or my orange goldfish. We always want to describe what we are talking about. That way the reader can envision, or they get a picture in their head of what it is that you are writing about. We're going to start with my goldfish. I'm going to show you a little video first, and then we're going to come up with our first sentence. So here's the video. In that video, you saw something, and they were fish, and they were swimming around in the fish tank. And I think when I looked at the fish, I felt that they were very happy. I'm going to start out introducing my goldfish. I'm going to say some happy fish were swimming in the fish tank. And remember, as I'm writing, you could be reading what I'm writing. I did my first sentence, and now I'm going to do some checks. So I only do one sentence at a time, and I stop, and now I need to look at some things. Come over to my writing checklist. Do I have my finger spacing between my words? Absolutely. Did I use a word wall? Yes, I did. I used everything around me to learn how to spell these words. Did I start with a capital letter? Check. Punctuation at the end of my sentence? Check. And did I check spelling for tricky words? And fish tank was a tricky word. I made it a compound word. And my daughter said, I'm pretty sure that's 2 words. So we had to go look it up. We used our computer as a resource, separated it out, and it is 2 words, fish tank. So I used my writing checklist. Next, I'm going to come over and look at transition words, a verb I used, and an adjective. The transition word that I used to start my story with was the word some. So I'm going to box that in black so that I know I used a transition word in that sentence. The verbs. Remember, we want to use colorful verbs, or we want to know what the character is doing. And my verb here is telling what my fish are doing. My fish are swimming. So that gives you a nice picture in your head of what my fish are doing. And my adjectives. So I want to make sure I describe my fish. Instead of just saying fish, I decided that they were going to be happy fish. I used an adjective in my sentence. Now I'm going to show you some video and we're going to see what my fish are going to do first. In that video, they were swimming around. What were they doing? They were looking for food. I'm going to say first, they, and instead of using the word looked, which is a good word, but I'm going to make it even, I don't know if you saw the fish, they were swimming around, they were very intently trying to figure out what they were looking for, so I'm going to say they searched for food. That makes it a little bit more exciting for our reader. Now I'm going to go to my writing checklist. Did I use finger spacing? Check. Did I use a word wall? Check. Did I have a capital letter at the beginning of my sentence? Check. Punctuation at the end? Check. And did I use any resources for spelling tricky words? I don't think I used any resources here. These words I knew how to spell, so I didn't need to look for support with that. My transition word that I used, and we used this many times in class when we were writing our stories, I used the word first as my transition word. Remember, verbs are the action of what the fish are doing, and the verb is searched. And adjective, I did not put an adjective in here. And I want to include an adjective. So I'm going to describe what kind of food. Pellet food. Is that how you spell pellet? Pellet food. All right, so I have an adjective now. And adjective's in green, so I'm going to put that in green. And did you see that I just used my daughter as a resource? So that's spelling tricky words. Now you're going to see the next clip. What are the fish doing? Did you guys see a crazy looking fish in that little clip? That is called a dojo loach. So a dojo loach is really skinny, sort of looks like a snake in a way. The dojo joined them in the search for food. I'm going to say then a dojo loach. Rachel, should this be capitalized?
No.
No.
If you want to be more specific, it's actually a gold dojo.
Did you just hear my daughter? She said if I wanted to be more specific, I could say a gold dojo loach. Joined the search. All right, so I'm going to look at my writing checklist. Do you guys agree that I had good finger spacing? I used my word wall. I put a capital letter at the beginning of my sentence, punctuation at the end of my sentence, and I have Rachel, my wonderful daughter, helping me as a resource for tricky words. So now I'm going to head from my writing checklist over to here. Did I use a transition word? This time I used the word then. Did I use any verbs? And remember, verbs are action. So what is the Gold Dojo doing? And he is joining, or he joined. I used that word. Could have used the word help. Instead, I used the word join. And an adjective, so I described what kind of dojo loach. My adjective is gold. We are now at the very end. You see how I've taken it sentence by sentence, done this very slowly. After that, so let's look at the video and see what happens after that. What were they doing in the video? They were all eating together. After that, the hungry fish all ate together. All right, let's check our writer's checklist that we learned about last week. Do I have finger spacing? Check. Did I use a word wall? Yes. Do I have a capital letter? Yes. Punctuation at the end of my sentence? Absolutely. And spelling for tricky words? I don't think I had tricky words in here, but you might have a tricky word if you use the word ate. One of our vocab words this week is the word ate. So this is the word ate if we eat something, and this is the word ate if we are counting the number 8. So that could have been a tricky word for some of you. Going to the transition words, I use after that. And again, this last part is not on your worksheet, but remember that we always end our stories. So we would have a finally or in the end. Verbs. Remember, a verb is the action. What are they doing? They ate. So that is my verb. And then my adjective, remember, describes. So instead of just calling them fish, I said they're hungry fish. That helped describe the fish. In your packet, for writing, remember you have your part of the packet where you can go, you already chose your animal, you can write your short story about your animal. But here are some modifications, parents, for your writer. So if your writer needs additional support, you could complete this together. Use some of the strategies that I used as far as making sure your transition words are there, you have verbs and your adjectives. You can also have your child orally tell you the story and you could write it down. Possibly then they could take what you wrote down and they could copy that so they could get the practice with rewriting high frequency words. So we already talked about what your favorite animal is, so hopefully you went and found that animal. But this is one of the modifications that I think is probably the most important, is to just focus on one sentence at a time. So it says focus one sentence, one section at a time. You saw how I took the very first sentence. I didn't get overwhelmed with writing everything at the same time. I stopped after the first sentence and then I made sure I was doing okay. So I did my writer's checklist. I made sure I had my transition words, my verbs, and my adjectives. Then I went on to my next sentence. I took it step by step, very slowly. There's also extensions for writers. Please look at those. And if you do one of the extensions, please let me know about it. I would love to see your work. There's so many different things that you could do. I know one of my students is actually doing a book study, so that is incredibly awesome. Anything that you can do to extend your writing. So have a wonderful day.